Well, welcome to the Dream Labs. It's Dr. Contrast Live. I hope everybody's well. As I said, I'd take a moment here and give you a little bit of an intro here today. I've always been intrigued with landscape architecture, and I think this project, you'll find to be very intriguing. In the midst of it all now, I'm still working actively with this organization to do some development work for them. But I thought it'd be interesting to kind of bring up to speed on where we are with some of the concept sketch work that we've done for a variety of areas within the site itself. Very massive project, by the way. A lot of moving parts, a lot of interesting areas, for example, retail spaces, mixed-use spaces, parkside, entryway features, gateways, signage and the like, and columns of all sorts, and again, wayfinding systems. So very conclusive approach here, but I thought I'd begin here today with just a very simple approach to getting the whole concept down in terms of how it all started. And I've just begun to go through some things that I can share with you. As I said, I'm still active with it. So the sketches you'll see today are all been approved and looked at and evaluated. And I think the overall theme they're going to work on here that I found out over the course of time working with this group is it's a very heavy Romantische or Swiss German architectural piece to it once you get into the actual architectural studies and the design work being done. So all that's yet to come. But these are just areas of things picking up on that same Germanic Romantisch theme of getting into pillar design, gateways, towers, and the like, wayfinding. So you'll see as we go through the process here how that influence has been injected in some of the sketches. So I want to start here with this little site plan thumbnail sketch. This is one small area in the complex itself, and it has a lot to do with, for example, a very, very massive area. This would be a retail arc, very much like a baseball diamond, retail arc, with a very focused center line going through the entire process of the roundabout. Once you move in, is an entryway coming in from the south, and then an entryway exit into the east, or both ways. A lot of boulevarding. This is all shopping in through here. A little bit of a ponding area here, a bridge. Again, more retail behind it. And this is the real feature here. This will be a landscape, almost like a tower system or a gateway piece, introducing the actual process itself. And along the way, we did some things here like boulevarding, the actual north and south, or the east and the east, west, and north-south avenue into it, with, for example, directive pieces and some signage along the way. So we'll show you here in a few moments what that began to look like. A little bit of perspective study, give you some idea of where that actual tower is existing, and then the tower here back in the roundabout. Retail areas. These are real loose, facile, what if thumbnails, and sitting down with what's fun about this process, sitting down with a client, and they're discussing what the actual feel of the character is, and I'm just sitting there doing some little conceptual sketches. Is it this? Is this a character you're after? So a lot of interchange back and forth about the design side of what we're dealing with here, and to be very active, an important part of the aspect of the design process, to be extremely tuned into listening very carefully, at the same time executing what if and how come, and giving some extrapolation as to this is what you've seen, but what about this, and so on. So this is the first little thumbnail study. I'll come back to this a little bit later on here, and then move some of these sketches through. There's a little more of a detailed piece here, coming out of those little thumbnails. Again, here's the major intersection here. This is where that large entryway piece is going to look. The tower, again, the pond and the toned area here. 3 bridges that go into retail. And again, another access area here. This one eliminated the roundabout, but they still want to put something back in there. I'm not sure what that's going to be yet. And then these 2 bridges, for example, are entryway pieces or gateways. They're very strong arches, almost like European, going to the old village. And while I'm at it, too, I think one of the things I brought up in the meeting was the fact that when I was in Europe at Opel Design Staff, on a touring along the Rhine River, there was a town or a village upon the Rhine just north of Rüsselsheim called Bacharach. Absolutely amazing. That village is still intact from the 17th century. It's been updated and so forth, but you can't drive into it. You've got to park on the Autobahn and then walk into the actual village itself. It's called Bacharach. Look it up. It's absolutely incredible. It goes back in the 1800s. The streets are very narrow, very Germanic, very, very quaint, but beautifully done. Cobblestone paved roads, and just wide enough back in those for carts. No vehicles are allowed in the actual place itself, but it's just neat. So I use that as a basic theme to work with here, and some of the sketches you'll see later. But again, here's a little plan view study, and this is one of an interesting little we call like a welcoming tower with banners and so forth along the boulevard, both in both directions, coming into this retail space. You see a series of towers like this, out of maybe stone or brick or old cobblestone, with a very copper roof on it, and then some signage and banners along the way. And in between those sections, a lot of softscaping, for example, with pine trees, shrubbery to kind of soften it all off. And that was a little detail that would come along in these areas here, along these areas here. And then last but not least, there's a little bit of a real rough perspective, looking at it from almost at an eye level into the view from this south corner looking northwest. So that's a little thumbnail sketch there. And I think the last thing we'll do here is this guy here. I'm showing you one more little sketch, a little bit of taking a little further, a little bit of a pencil sketching, a bit more here I call the village, where you've got the bridging, the tower itself. There's the entryway piece, this very strong Germanic tower that gives you the lead into the actual site itself. Entryway in, exit, and so forth. Again, all the retail shops are on this very, very strong, prominent arc. And again, park space, walkways, and again, these little, again, the same towers around the four corners in that area, or the actual, what we refer to as the village area in this site. So look at a little rough site. So once we got past that, just looking some roughs at it here, this is but one area of a very massive overall architectural piece itself. And I've got some drawings I'll show you later on about what some portion of the site is. I would venture to say probably when it's all said and done, there's probably 5 or 6 pockets we're going to deal with here to do design work. And it's very unique because each one will have a family relationship to it, but at the same time become very, very distinctive in certain areas. And they wanted a certain identity in some areas too that really was much more significant for them to discern where they were in the actual site itself. So that's the last little thumbnail sketch of this village area we talked about, these rough sketches. Then we went into more detailed work in terms of getting the wayfinding pieces, for example. And again, these are real quick little ballpoint pen sketches looking at the possibility of getting into materials, signage, etc. And these are wayfinding areas, sketches that will look at different ways of setting up a tower or a pillar of some sort for them to identify where they are. For example, it might be what's missing here, obviously, are designated areas. For example, you might have the actual logo itself, and then maybe above that or from a hanging sign out here, where you are in the site. For example, maybe it's a commercial zone, maybe it's a residential zone, a housing development, a mixed use, etc. But again, these sketches are primarily very, very quick, done in ballpoint pen, looking at a variety of ways to look at wayfinding signage and within the system. So there's phase one. Another set. Notice again, very, very Germanic in terms of high towers, almost bell type, all copper headers. Signage areas with banners and ribbons, stone, very architecture, arcade looking, very romantic and almost nostalgic in a sense. So some of the detail work was very unique itself. And the funny thing is to bring this up because I thought it was really unique. Of all the sketches done, this one really intrigued that staff the most. Almost defying gravity, but it had that almost castle-like look to it with a very strong copper upper stepping stone base on it. Identifier with maybe a flag of some sort or a pennant of some sort to tell you where you are. But this one really intrigued them. I think it kind of set the tone for some of the sketches to come in the future. You'll see here as we go down the list. But again, a very, very Germanic looking, almost all copper or hammer-horn metal with a combination of stone, some color flagging and so forth. And again, notice some designations, District 112, 113, trying to give it some sort of identification or flavor. Very traditional looking column here with maybe a little bit of a telltale piece in it. Maybe that's a signage piece or an address piece. That had to be determined, but again, as I said at the beginning of the stream, most of this material that we're looking at here today has been approved and looked at and very, very well received. And now we're looking at and I'm waiting, for example, now for more direction in terms of which way to turn, and more so in the architectural flavor of the buildings within the site itself. For example, the retail areas, some of the housing areas, and some of the mixed use areas. Very expansive from that point of view. So stay tuned. We'll kind of bring you back to speed here when this thing comes up to speed again. The reason it's been a bit of a holding pattern is so massive. A lot of the contractors and people working with the architects that I'm working with are taking the time to evaluate where they want to go, what the flavors are, materials usage, and so forth, and getting it all set up. So here's again, this is wayfinding. And we'll carry on with some more wayfinding here. Another family of forms. A little more elaborate in terms of being sidewalk related, much more tower type here. Again, in all three examples, getting into some buses, some buttress work off the actual header itself for the cap, the stone. And again, very simple process here. We're getting into a 3-tier piece with banners down below. Again, looking at very simple, as we go back to the sketch here, this last plate, we had one like this, which is very traditional. Pardon me as I reach this thing. Very traditional in some respects. And again, very, very much in terms of being a lot more romantic and a lot more adventuresome in families of form such as this. So it was ranging all over the place, which I thought was unique. It wasn't really captive in terms of be careful not to do this or this or this. The actual edict I received from the actual management was open it all up. Let's see what's available with this whole romantic, Germanic theme, and go elaborate, go simple, go very traditional, non-traditional, and just see what, explore some things that are unique for this site, which I thought was a very, very liberating thing to go through, which is very enjoyable to deal with. So then there's a little bit more adventuresome in terms of some of the actual signage and wayfinding pieces we'll look at within the site. Again, same carry on, getting into more of the traditional obelisk type, very tall. Maybe that's about an 8 to 10 footer scale. Again, same thing here. Same thing here. Notice again, a lot of copper, stone, for example. Lanterns and lighting can be very, very precious part of the process as well. So again, neat ways of looking at how to put together some signage things in terms of being a little more distinctive. And I think one of the things I respected most about the management group when working with this team was they were not content with the typical or reserved approach to design. They wanted something that was very much a new footprint and a very revolutionary piece of architectural works throughout the entire site. So it opened up the liberation quite a bit, which is really intriguing to me because normally you get the edict that's got to be a pillar that looks like this, or a stone cap that looks like this, or a sign that looks like this. This is the first time in a long time that I've done a lot of architectural landscape work, but this is one of the first times where we actually got a blank check in terms of being very, very lucid with conceptualization. That's extremely rare. And well, I'm at it to misunderstand the context here, but when it was all said and done, when I submitted this first phase of sketches to the organization and the team group, they were overwhelmed at the fact that they were taken back by the fact that there was so much variety in the approach that we're looking at here. So I think that's an important aspect about the design process too. No matter what your discipline is, it's very critical to take a look at maybe a tight spectrum and open up the spectrum, take a chance at what they're really saying in terms of what their vision is, and magnifying that vision and giving them more to deal with in terms of thinking process. And 9 times out of 10, that works very well. You're not offending anybody. Don't misunderstand. You're not offending anybody. You're taking their input and delivering the goods, but again, expanding it out to say, what if we tried this? What about this newness? What about this material? All that was part of the process there, which I thought was really intriguing. So again, it's another generation of sketches, a little bit more elaborate in terms of tower type signage and wayfinding for the site, and that was a part of it. Again, going a little further with this. These really caught their attention, especially this one. Really thought it was kind of a neat 6 to 8 foot piece. The lantern obelisk up on top, signage down below, a little bit of maybe a logo piece, some stone and some cap work and the like. Just the freshness of putting combinations of things together was very intriguing to them. And I thought, from my point of view, really receptive in terms of being able to put together a lot of neat stuff with a different approach or maybe a different personality to it without being so stoic. So again, a lot of concept work here to go through. Now this next sketch here, getting into some of the half rounds, the semicircular pieces with a little bit of tower in the center. This would be all maybe wood to stone, and again, copper upper, a lot of soft scaping around the base. Really interesting things to deal with. And again, looking at different approaches too. Typical signage here with the banners and ribbons. Again, maybe a little resting. This could be a benching area too. There could be a seated area. A lot of variation there to look at. Down below here, maybe a little bit of signage or a lighting system of some sort. And this was a bit of a twist. And Tricky said it's a little bit of a wedge type. And again, this would be a wayfinding signage kiosk here. Maybe a 4-sided or 2-sided in this case, but you could double them up and make a double, like a diamond pattern. And that became a part of maybe a feature in a village of some sort or a park area. Again, looking at all these variations of theme to really kind of develop a real solid sense of what we're really looking at here as far as the actual input for the actual space itself, for the actual site. Again, now, interesting thing. Now, we went from this, for example, into more specific wayfinding areas for sections or areas, And then the development came in next with the idea of saying, all right, what do we need as far as a real signature piece, like a gateway of some sort. So these next sketches begin to develop some of the gateway systems we're working with here. Notice, start with a very almost romantic tall towers. Look at the scale here, for example. If that's a 6-foot individual, that's a good maybe 50, 60, 70-foot area there with maybe a stone change. Again, metallic, copper upper, same thing with all these areas too. Variations on theme, again, really holding fast to this whole idea. What they were looking for was this very romantic, Germanic approach to the design concept work here. So very, very intriguing from that point of view, no question. So again, these get a little bit more elaborate, and I think the reception here, which I was very surprised by, was very favorable. They wanted that kind of grandiose scale. It wasn't a matter of just doing a small little tower, maybe a 12 or 14 footer, but this is something. Their approach here for this gateway piece was from a distance. You'd sense it with a lighting process or a feature in the area that would give it some sort of distinction. So that was, again, part of the rationale behind going very, very grandiose from the very beginning. Another way of looking at it here is a little bit of a thumbnail sketch here, getting into, again, an approach, for example. This would be more specific, maybe a retail space or a residential area. But again, a very, very strong, bold approach to design with buttresses. This could be all metal again, or it could be all wood, back to stone, and some soft scaping around it. That was part of the whole process as well. But again, something like this was extremely well received as well, where you've got a bridge or an archway going into the actual site itself, where you've got a very strong tower and a companion piece to go through it, maybe a walkway of some sort, almost like London Bridge, so to speak, but in a more romantic or romantic form of architecture. Very a lot of cross-bucking, a lot of wood use, a lot of stone use, and coppers and hammer formed metals and the like. So very, very grandiose from the point of view of these wayfinding or gateway towers. Another variation of the theme here, same process again, looking at some very strong, bold towers. Looking at this guy from the point of view of windows, or maybe it's an elevated faux pop piece that has a little bit more distinctive to it. And again, some of the retail spaces behind it, giving it a sense of scale. Again, clock tower could be included in this with a 3-tier piece, metal to metal to wood to stone, and cross-bucking against stone. It could be very simple here with some keystone pieces along the border to give it some distinction as well. So again, very strong tower piece here. Again, these are little detailed pieces here. Maybe like a gathering place inside the area itself. And then a little thumbnail sketch here of an archway and entrance into the thing. The site itself, again, some more column pieces, more of an obelisk look with signage on it. Again, this is one piece actually. This would be almost looking at this guy in elevation and then into perspective, what that might look like here. Like a garden space or a gathering place of some sort, obelisk, and then these towers around it. Another variation on theme could be this, could be one of these guys, 1, 2, etc. Variation on theme, they're going to help them through the process to see where they wanted to take this. And again, lots of areas within the site were planned around this gathering place. It could be a green space, it could be an actual paved area, it could be a covered building of some sort, like a gathering spot, a place for the communities or community to gather and have functions such as celebrations for Halloween, Christmas, spring, etc., June, 4th of July, those kinds of things. So again, another variation theme. And now much more elaborate here. We're getting into an entryway here where you actually, this is a plan view study of this piece itself. This is maybe another element that could go here. But again, here's I'm going to give it a double bridge, entry, egress. But again, they're very much almost residential looking, almost castle-like, where you've got this actual walk-through or drive-through piece, 2-lane system in the actual village itself or the residential areas. Again, very strong presence of being extremely unique, different, very grandiose, and very elite in the sense that the sketches or the idea design work could be very distinctive for this actual site itself, because it's a very special area. I think it really needed a lot of special attention, which I thought, again, was very unique from the point of view of the management team working with this thing. They never really pulled back on be careful with this and don't do this and don't. There was very little do's and don'ts. There was a lot of what do we have in terms of expansion here? How can we develop a whole new look here and make it a really very unique, personality for individuals to come and be a draw factor within the community that they're working with. So again, these are very strong in terms of, again, there's another approach here. Again, same kind of process where you actually come to drive through just be a single laner. Again, that tower could be, that tower, this guy could have that character and have that character, or else be very straightforward, a lot of cross bucking in here. And again, copper and metals up on top, very stone piece, very rustic looking, but at the same time rugged, but hopefully welcoming. So that's another variation there in some of these gateways. And then let's get into some of these gathering places again, where you actually have 4 obelisks around a town center of some sort and a walkway into it. Again, you could expand that out to become more of a green space, but more of a gathering plot. So again, little thumbnail sketch here and some of the actual signage itself that could go within the area here, or that could be part of this process on the perimeter. Elevation of that little study here with maybe a logo, and again, another variation on tower of looking at different ways to put those action pieces in place to give this thing some real personality and distinction, almost like a resort area of some sort. So I wasn't really eliminating that at all. I think that was all part of the process to give this thing some real solid distinction, like almost going to not a Disneyland type, but almost like a theme park of some sort, like a rustic cabin, but yet having a European character to it. So again, it's one of the last little studies here, getting into some of this material. Again, some of the same towers, getting some of these box structures coming off the actual building itself. Where in elevation you've got this could be a retail space. I'm not sure. I've got some other pieces that I've done digitally, but we'll show you maybe later on that we got into some of the actual housing and residential and office space and mixed use uses that we've seen here. But again, just variations, looking at, again, design ideas, putting together this whole theme of this Romantisch and German architecture for this actual very massive site. And then going back in here, let's go back in again. Another little area here where it becomes much more of a gathering place, where you've got maybe an area here that could be the softscape, or could be a hardscape, very village area here. That could be expanded out to be a little wider and opened up, but it could be actually village-like. It could be a town center with benching, more softscape around it. So we kept it pretty fluid in terms of what we might want to put into it to keep it very flexible and fluid from the point of view, from the design perspective itself. So then we go back in here, and we're back in with some of these, again, some more very distinctive design, very slowed down process, very simple. Again, this could be a great entryway piece, and they really thought that this personality, where you have these twin towers, one more residential or office space, and maybe as an entry face into the village we talked about earlier. And again, a little complementary tower that goes with it, but a walkway to go underneath it, or a driveway through it to get into the space itself. So the singular approach was good, but they really liked the double approach here. Very interesting part of this site to make it very unique and very distinctive. So lots of neat little thumb scale sketches here. And again, last but not least, and there's another variation of the theme, what it might look like. And this kind of takes off on this guy right here. Oh, let me get my fingers right here. This is a variation on theme here. Let's go back to this guy for a moment, where we actually take these guys. They're going to be doubled up on one. Let's see, there we are there. Right about right there. So again, started here, a very elaborate dual system, and then came back to maybe a single with a 2-lane pass-through. But again, this would go into maybe a subdivision of some sort, or the village of some sort. This could be a very consistent piece in different zones within the site itself to become part of the entryway feature or the gateway feature into the actual site itself. So, or many of the several, I think there's about maybe, last count we were looking at this whole big site plan, there's about maybe 8 different areas to deal with here. So it's going to be very massive in terms of getting things organized and begin to placate certain things and getting it organized and make decisions upon. But I think in the meantime, these sketches really helped. What I was really excited about was, and I think let me backtrack a moment here. What I was excited about was the fact that in the very beginning, in the initial meetings, there was not a real solid consensus on what this site would look like. What pieces are we going to put into place? How do we mix it up? How do we make it distinctive? A lot of pros and cons, a lot of traditional thinking, which I think is fine, but there are some individuals who are much more breakthrough individuals, much more avant-garde, taking some chances on design, etc. So it was a very, it wasn't really a settled process in terms of A to B to C to D. But lo and behold, once these sketches that we're just showing you now were revealed to them, it gave them some real motivation about putting together the pieces properly for each particular area within the site, yet keeping a common thread, maybe fencing of some sort or some sort of a feature that keeps it all consistent, but yet gateways, signage, wayfinding, all the elements within it, much more distinctive in terms of columns and pillars. So they could have distinctive areas, but a common, some sort of a common sense that it all works together without being, for lack of a better term, typical, mundane, uninspiring. So that was really unique what these sketches helped them do. So I was pleased about that, very pleased about the reception they've got. There's a lot of risk-taking in these sketches in terms of what ifs. But again, I wasn't the Lone Ranger. I listened very carefully about what the process was needed and what the necessary elements were. But again, took the chance to stretch it a little bit further to give them that sense of uniqueness and newness that they deserve. So that was a duel. This is back to the singular piece here, very unique in terms of what it looked like. Again, picking up on it. Then a neat thing happened along the way here. They said, well, what about a logo of some sort? So I just did a few little sketches here on some logo pieces. Very, very rough, almost a Midwestern look to it. Very unique, Plain City and so forth. From the plains, a very desert type. But again, there was one set of circumstances, one set of sketches, into another set of sketches here where we did some a little more fluid on top of a stone piece, etc., giving it a very countrified or very rural look to it, etc., away from being so formal with the blade signage and the like. And then the last one, this, by the way, let me finish the sketch here. This is the last little study on some really interesting concept work here as far as developing a logo. But these three sketches were probably three of about 50 submitted. I mean, I've got a whole bunch of stuff on my iPad I'll probably bring out a little bit later. I just was very selective here about what we were looking for and what they were looking for. But it went from all that. I'll notice it was interesting how the sketches that were done for the architectural piece all of a sudden became extremely motivational to kind of, we need a unique logo of some sort, something that makes it very distinctive in terms of not being so traditional and then so formal looking. So that worked out pretty well. I'll show you some, as time moves on here, we get this thing up and running again. We'll show you what takes place in terms of what the actual logo development was. So everything here, as I stated in the very beginning of the stream, is still interactive. Nothing's been concluded yet. This is a very massive program. I'm sure it'll go on for maybe another year or two. I'm not sure what my involvement's going to be, but I think once it starts up again, with some of the architectural features and some of the other things we talked about in the stream today, we'll begin to magnify that. And I'll come back and put on a presentation to let you see what's being taken place here. So that was some of the logo work. And I thought it was interesting. Last little piece here we'll work with. This is a bit of a site plan we were working with here. This is interesting because this intersection was very powerful in terms of this is where the whole process began. This was their gateway piece here. Notice, you look at the site plan here. There's a little bit of a gray line that comes around here. That's a walking path that they had already designated in here. And then this little blue line here was a ponding system that was in the actual site itself. But the thing that was missing was a real strong feature about what this process is going to look like and what it was really going to deal with. This was the actual gateway piece itself. So as you come driving through here on this major artery, this would go east-west, this is north-south. When you came through here, they wanted the tower, for example. Some of the towers we showed you earlier in some of the sketches were really critical in terms of where they needed to be put here. They wanted a very strong tower up here, both sides of the road to kind of bring you in. Very strong signage inside the piece itself, some of the features around the actual walkway to deal with. So this was a site plan I was given. And then from this site plan, notice again, pay attention to, again, this area here in blue is all where that ponding was. That's where the pond would be. And again, this is a walking path around the site and also filtered off into another area back here. There was a dual pond that they added later on. So this is what the actual site plan was. And then from my point of view, this is what I put together as far as sketch goes in terms of putting together what that intersection might look like. Let's get this out of the way. This again is that east-west artery. This is north-south artery. There's that little pond area here. And there again was a bridgeway. And notice again the features in this actual gateway piece. Here's a major intersection. Notice again the tower system, some of the stonage, some of the copper pieces that we'd shown you earlier in some of the sketches were active in this piece. This is a very large, expansive wall. This wall took place about right here. I'd say right in this area here, in this part of the radius right here. You've got this very large wall that wraps around that lakeside, and those letters that we're looking at here, they specified they wanted those letters to be at least 10 feet tall. Just to give you an idea of scale here, where the individuals are. Very, very tall piece coming in, illuminated at night. The back stone, back area here, this could be stone, could be a variety of materials and so forth. Could be illuminated from underneath. This little base here had some lighting systems in it. There's a tower. We felt, for example, looking at this sketch, we'd go out taller with this thing, be more prominent, but it has a family of shapes in the bridge itself and around that walking path. And if you notice here, the walking path goes in behind here, and it goes underneath the bridge, and it comes back out on top to where this the signage piece is here. So again, that was the first pass at it, and I thought it was really unique. I have a whole lot of sketches around what this wall detail might look like, and I think I might have to get those out of once I get these cleared and for distribution and for viewing purposes. I'll be sure to bring them back to kind of bring up to speed on the next set of circumstances or phases within this project itself. So that was the first sketch we did. Then the second one was another little bit of a different view, kind of lifting the view plane a little bit, eye level up just a touch, to show you what this whole process looked like. Again, notice again, let's get this set up here. Here's the major east-west artery. There's a little bit of a shield system here, some paving work that he'd done. This is all softscaping through here. There's that actual detail of that wall. Is telling you it's actually a huge scale. So when you're back here in this intersection, looking into the process itself, you cannot miss that letter form. And that's what the designation is for this site. The walking path behind it here, coming back out into this area. Here comes out here into over the bridge, around the walking path, and so on, into the lake itself, or the actual pond. The two very strong towers. We still felt, again, looking at this sketch, they're going to increase these guys about twice the height. It's going to really give some real prominence. But overall, that really kind of, for the first phase here, I just want to bring this out and let you see what the development was for this actual site itself. As I said earlier, it's still extremely active. There's a lot of moving parts in this piece, in this project itself. So let me just kind of get this back into scale here. Let's do this so you can see this overview here of the main area that we're looking at here. So that actually is, I think to my knowledge, the last meeting we had, this was the chosen selection, minus the tower changes and some of the things we're dealing with here. But all this has to be kind of qualified, straightened out, material-wise, scale is set. I mean, they really wanted to go large scale with this, but I thought it was really unique. Very interesting approach, but you'll see this thing, again, east-west, north-south, very strong, prominent. And again, we started here with a whole little bit of a fencing detail, and I've got some sketches, a multitude of sketches on fencing details in terms of variations on theme and some of the little oblasts along with it. So I'll bring those into play once I get the approval to move on to this project. So again, spent time today, just wanted you to see the massive scale in this landscaping architectural design project that I've been working with, and it's been really an intriguing. I love this discipline. I think it's a very unique discipline to work with. A lot of different things to deal with, materials, flavor, scale, material. It's just very pervasive, and I think that's the intriguing part of it all. And you work with people in the architectural side of life that have some really great vocabulary in terms of what materials can be used and how we can utilize them and what lighting can do and fluorescence and all these elements that go with it. Very intriguing discipline. So I hope this has been really helpful to you today. I've held back on putting this piece together to get some approval from the actual people I'm working with to get this shown. They said, fine. So far, so good what you are going to show. We've already been approved and looked upon, but there's some things to come as we develop this thing that they'll, as I said earlier, I'll be sure to bring along and bring up to speed and do maybe a phase 2 on this thing and bring it all up to speed for you. But cannot thank you enough today for taking the time to kind of tune in. I hope this has been helpful to you, especially those of you in the landscape architectural design field. And while I'm at it too, I think I don't want to lose sight of today by really putting this salutation out to those of you who've been watching me on Twitch and following me. I cannot thank you enough for your time and your effort to be very kind to tune in, listen, and to watch what I'm going through. I change gears, for example. Sometimes it's automobile, sometimes it's product, landscape, sometimes it's space equipment, artillery equipment, vehicle design. I like to move it around quite a bit because I do a lot of different things, and I really want to make sure we kind of spread that that little talent base out there, very little talent that I have. We're going to open it up a little bit to see how these things begin to function. But I really do want to thank you for the time to join here on every Wednesday when I go live at 2:30. It means an awful lot to me, and I thank you very much for your loyalty there. And then on that same tone too, last little note, I'm also going to start maybe at the end of this month. I'm going to go through July with some of the things in terms of design and so forth. But I think I really have a lot of requests coming in from individuals, not only on YouTube, but to Twitch, with YouTube and other areas as well, to get more into some of the instructional things, like really fast 5 or 10 minute little snippets on design thinking, perspective, volumetrics, light source, all the things that kind of come together to produce sketches like this. So if that's of any interest to you, please let me know, and please feel free to contact me at my website. My web address, for example, email address is at jim@drcontrast.com. I'd love to hear from you. I think your input is extremely vital to me. Very much respected. Also, please visit my website at drcontrast.com. You'll see some drawing information there. I've got a nine lesson plan on a digital phenomenon. I've got some publications on drawing books there, some new apparel work on the site, so I think you'll find it to be very intriguing. But above all else, again, sincere thank you for taking the time over the course of the past few months to be with me. We've made a schedule change here on Wednesdays. I think it's a little more refreshing. It gives me a little more time to do some prep work behind the scenes and make sure we've got some good programming for you to look at and to evaluate. And again, on that note, I really do appreciate it. And again, please take a moment. Again, I really look forward to hearing from you. Again, drop me a note at jim@drcontrast.com. And we'll look forward to hopefully seeing you in a week from now, next Wednesday. We'll go through a little bit of a process again. I'm going to switch gears next Wednesday into some product design work and show you some things we've done in the past with a very intriguing firm that came out of Phoenix, Arizona, and I think you'll enjoy that process. I want to show you some of the development side of how that whole project came together, much like we did here. Also, I'll be working on the Mocharon. I've got another variation on theme. I worked on it last week, last Wednesday. Wasn't really pleased with the proportions on that thing. I think the character was there, but it didn't have the proportion feel that it had to. So I've got a new sketch I'm working on now, and I'm putting that into some sort of a composition phase. And once I get the composition down, maybe a week or two, we'll go back into a nice finished rendering, and I'll put that up on our website for sale, etc. So once again, can't thank you enough for the time today. I wish all of you an extremely, very, very strong day. And again, I hope this has been a really intriguing run for you to look at from the point of view of landscape architecture. And I'll say again, one of the great joys I work with, and a lot of firms over the country, across the country, and working with landscape architecture is really intriguing to me because there's so many neat things: park design, signage, gateways, structural pieces, residential, mixed use elements, city planning, all these things that come together with it. It's just so intriguing for me to work with. So I've been very grateful to work with some great people in the industry, both here locally and again across the country. And again, this has been a really strong program in terms of the scale of this thing is overwhelming. So I'm looking forward to phase 2 once we get some things settled in. And on that note, it is such a massive project. It's going to take months, maybe a good year and a half to kind of get it all settled in. So there's more to come, and I hope you stay tuned, and I hope all of you have a great, great day. And I always sign off with something like this, and I really sincerely mean it. Never forget to dare to remember to be great, because you are. Thanks very much, gang. Have a great day. We'll see you a week from today on some product design work. So thank you so much, and take care. All the very best.